They had the fame, the power, the golden spotlight of Hollywood. But behind the glitz, behind the red carpets, was a disease that no studio could cover up. These stars weren't taken by scandal or by fading careers. They were taken by something far more tragic. This is the story of Hollywood icons who rose to dazzling heights, only to be struck down by HIV and AIDS, leaving behind silence, heartbreak, and a legacy cut far too short. The story begins with an actor whose name once commanded respect across television screens. Robert Reed, beloved as the father from the Brady Bunch. To millions, he was the picture of stability and charm. But in 1992, he passed at just 59 years old. His death shocked the world, and only later did it become known that HIV complications had played a role. The revelation shattered the carefully kept secret he had lived with, hidden under Hollywood's ruthless glare. Then came Anthony Perkins, the man immortalized as Norman Bates in Psycho. To the public, he was terrifying, unforgettable, and brilliant. Off-screen, his personal battles were even haunting. In 1992, he passed from AIDS-related pneumonia. He had kept his diagnosis hidden, saying he did not want pity, only privacy. When the news finally broke, it cast a long, devastating shadow over one of Hollywood's most chilling and beloved performances. Another story belonged to Gia Karanji, one of the very first supermodels. She was beauty personified, with her face gracing magazine covers worldwide. But behind the camera, Gia struggled with addiction and a reckless lifestyle that left her vulnerable to the epidemic. In 1986, at just 26 years old, she passed from AIDS complications, becoming one of the very first high-profile women claimed by the disease. The world lost not just a model, but the very definition of 1980s glamour. Hollywood also lost the legendary Liberace. Known for his flamboyant costumes, outrageous piano performances, and larger-than-life personality, Liberace was adored by fans for decades. But his final years were marked by a secret battle with AIDS. When he passed in 1987, his management initially denied the truth. The stigma was so intense, even death couldn't free him from Hollywood's obsession with appearances. Today, his loss is remembered as one of the most tragic silences of the epidemic. The stage wasn't safe either. Howard Ashman, the brilliant lyricist behind Disney classics like Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid, had given the world unforgettable songs and timeless joy. Yet behind the music, he was quietly battling AIDS. In 1991, at only 40 years old, he was gone. But his final work left a legacy that still lives in every lyric sung by millions of children worldwide. His genius was immortal, but his life was heartbreakingly short. Dak Rambo was another rising star, best known for his television roles in Dallas and All My Children. Handsome, talented, and charismatic, he had all the makings of a household name. In 1994, however, AIDS cut his life short at just 52 years old. Before his passing, he spoke openly about living with HIV, using his voice to raise awareness at a time when fear still silenced too many. The epidemic didn't discriminate. Klaus Nomi, the avant-garde singer known for his bizarre costumes and operatic voice, was unlike anyone else in the music world. His performances were otherworldly, his style groundbreaking. But by 1983, he became one of the very first celebrity victims of AIDS, passing at only 39 years old. His futuristic image made him unforgettable, but his death revealed how vulnerable even the boldest talents truly were. Denham Elliott, remembered for roles in A Room with a View and Raiders of the Lost Ark, was another beloved figure whose life ended too soon. In 1992, AIDS claimed him at 70 years old. The British actor, who had charmed audiences with his wit and elegance, left behind a legacy of artistry and a reminder that no level of talent could shield Hollywood from the epidemic. Brad Davis, star of Midnight Express, was known for his intensity and raw power on screen. His breakout role brought him awards, acclaim, and the promise of a long career. But by 1991, AIDS complications ended his life at just 41 years old. His death sent a message that the disease wasn't just taking anonymous lives, it was robbing Hollywood of its brightest lights. Even in the world of sports, the disease struck hard. Tommy Morrison, the heavyweight boxer who appeared in Rocky V, was known for his strength, his fighting spirit, and his larger-than-life personality. But in 1996, he tested positive for HIV, a revelation that derailed his career and sent shockwaves through the boxing community. By 2013, AIDS-related complications claimed his life at just 44 years old. His story was proof that even champions weren't invincible. Kevin Peter Hall, the towering actor behind The Predator and the Predator films, had a promising career in Hollywood. At over 7 feet tall, he was a commanding presence on screen. But in 1991, after a medical procedure left him infected with HIV, he passed away from complications at just 35 years old. Fans never even saw his face in the role that made him famous, but his loss was deeply felt in Hollywood's sci-fi world. Merritt Buttrick, best known as Captain Kirk's son in the Star Trek films, was another life cut painfully short. At just 29 years old, he passed in 1989 from AIDS-related illness. The young actor's career had only begun, but his passing became a devastating reminder that youth and talent were not enough to escape the epidemic. Tony Richardson, the acclaimed British director of Tom Jones, was another giant loss to the crisis. In 1991, he passed at 63, leaving behind a career that had shaped cinema for decades. His death showed that not only actors and performers, but even Hollywood's most powerful creative minds were vulnerable. Jermaine Stewart, the singer who gave us the hit "We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off," died of AIDS-related complications in 1997. His music had been upbeat, joyful, and filled with energy, but behind the stage lights was a private battle that ended too soon, at 39. Michael Jeter, the Emmy and Tony Award-winning actor, beloved for The Green Mile and Evening Shade, lived openly with HIV for years. In 2003, he passed suddenly at 50, leaving fans shocked. His death reminded the world that while medicine had improved, the fight against AIDS was far from over. Paul Schenner, who terrified audiences as Alejandro Sosa in Scarface, was another victim of the epidemic. His powerful presence and commanding performances had set him apart, but in 1989, AIDS claimed him at 53. Hollywood lost not just a villain on screen, but a man of immense talent. Timothy Patrick Murphy, known for his roles on Dallas and Search for Tomorrow, passed away in 1988 at just 29 years old. Another young talent whose life and career ended before they could truly begin. His passing was a painful reminder of how unforgiving the epidemic was to Hollywood's rising stars. Pedro Zamora, the Cuban-American reality TV star of The Real World in San Francisco, was an activist as well as an entertainer. Living openly with HIV, he used his fame to educate others about the disease. His death in 1994, at just 22 years old, was not only tragic, but a wake-up call to millions of young viewers. Rudolf Nureyev, one of the greatest ballet dancers in history, was celebrated for redefining the art of male performance in dance. In 1993, AIDS complications took his life at 54. He had transformed the world of ballet, but his death showed even the most graceful stars were not untouchable. Eazy-E, the rapper known as the godfather of gangster rap and a founding member of NWA, shocked the world when he announced his AIDS diagnosis in 1995. Just weeks later, he passed at 30 years old. His death sent shockwaves not just through music, but through an entire generation who realized the epidemic could strike anywhere, even at the very heart of cultural revolution. Sylvester, the flamboyant disco legend behind You Make Me Feel Mighty Real, passed from AIDS in 1988 at 41. He had brought joy and liberation to countless fans, especially in the LGBTQ community. But his life ended before he could see the full impact of his trailblazing work. And then there was Rock Hudson, the Hollywood icon whose passing in 1985 was the turning point in how the world understood AIDS. Known for his leading man roles and rugged charm, Hudson's death made headlines worldwide.
The epidemic wasn't just a hidden crisis. It was on every front page, attached to one of the biggest names in Hollywood history. His courage in facing the disease publicly forced a conversation that could no longer be ignored. Finally, Freddie Mercury, the legendary frontman of Queen, whose voice could shake arenas and whose presence electrified the world. In 1991, AIDS claimed him at 45 years old, just one day after he publicly confirmed his diagnosis. His passing was one of the most shocking and heartbreaking in music history. But even in death, his voice never faded. His songs still roar across stadiums, his spirit still lifts millions, and his loss still stands as one of the greatest tragedies of the epidemic. These 25 stars defined an era, changed culture, and touched millions. But their lives were cut short, their stories rewritten by a disease that stole too many too soon. Their legacies remain, immortal in film, music, and memory. But their absence is still felt. They were taken in silence, but they left behind echoes that will never fade.